Nick, what's the XYZ framework? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I actually jotted that down.
Yeah.
It's that what you're bringing up, Sherry, that in situation X, when you did Y, it made me feel Z. And obviously the Y part there, you're trying not to say, when you did this, you're not accusing, you're stating something factually about what they said, what they did. So an example being, when we're in the car, that's X, and you were driving over the speed limit, that'd be Y, it made me feel unsafe. Or it made me feel like you weren't concerned about how I perceived our speed limit. Or a spouse might say back, when we were driving in the car and you criticized my driving, or you made that, and maybe I shouldn't say that. You would probably say, when you made that comment about my poor driving, I felt like I wasn't good enough, or it made me feel unworthy. So just thinking through, what is a little pattern that I can concisely explain, what was the situation, how did it make me feel, in the hope that then, hey, let's talk about this, not just that I'm trying to tell you don't do that. It's like, could we talk about a better way to handle this?
Something that I think is always important is, and this can probably apply in general to sharing emotions, but if I don't know what emotions I'm feeling, the illustration comes to mind, like the runway is really important. So like how you approach the conversation or kind of get into it is really important. Because if, and you know this, if a plane just goes down 10 feet and then tries to pull into the air without getting up to speed, it is going to be disastrous. And I think that the same thing, there are things we can do on the front end of these conversations that help us avoid some of those major pitfalls. And so saying, and I've said this to my wife, instead of just saying, I'm really angry at you, that could be my idea of that. But if I have no idea what I'm actually feeling, a better approach might be, hey, I'm feeling a lot of emotions and I'm not really sure what I'm feeling. Can I process with you? And can you help me kind of identify this? That is a much more collaborative space you're asking your spouse to enter in rather than just pointing a finger. And so I think that that's something that we could do a better job of, instead of just blurting it out, just say, hey, I've been feeling, some things and I just want, Sherry, you talked about this earlier. Like if you want to verbally process, setting up that space where they could say, no, now's not a good time. I'm not really in the right headspace. But setting that, expectation in the next day or two, I'd really love some time to sit down and talk about how I'm feeling, and entering that space, with your weapons away, basically, I think is really helpful.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, I had to learn the language of emotions. I had to learn how to share those. And that's where the faster scale was so key in our marriage, and having a commitment in that first year or two of recovery, that we were having this weekly check-in where I would share my faster scale with my wife, really taught me how to walk through, okay, this week, this is where I was feeling anxiety and this is how it made me feel. And then this led me to speeding up, and here's how I felt there. And I think I intuitively knew I was feeling those things. I just didn't realize how little I was ever telling anybody else. And the number of times my wife was like, wow, I never knew you felt that way. It's like, really? I feel that way all the time. I thought we talked about this. Like, oh, I guess I just have a pattern of, well, I need to fix it myself. And, I would journal and pray. And so I think I'd processed emotions, as an individual, but learning to actually tell someone else what I was feeling without feeling like the shame of I'm weak or I'm not good enough was just a new experience. And so to have a framework like the faster scale to work through was really, really helpful. And I know for others, it's been tools like the Thanos check-in, where it's feelings is the first one. And they literally are pulling out a feelings wheel each day and just saying like, what's my dominant feeling today? And coming up with a word like, oh, I never thought of that. And sharing that with your spouse out loud, just in a 2-3 minute check-in, it gets us in this habit of, I'm putting out loud something I'm feeling inside. And it just starts to become a more normal part of our communication with our spouse.
Another thing that just came to mind, and I'm this way where I can be pretty task oriented, where I feel like my emotions, when I share them, we need a resolution. We got to figure out how to fix it or solve it or, resolve whatever. And I think that emotions are not created that way. We experience them, extended period of time, short periods of time. And so also know as you're entering into that space, it's not necessarily going to be a box that you check and you can move on. It may be one conversation in a number of conversations or a number of experiences that you have that help you process why you're feeling the way that you're feeling.